This is Tiffany of WTF, Whitney and Tiffany, and I am here to share an edit with you. I got a few messages asking about this particular photo, so I decided just to make a recording because it does a really nice job of showcasing our fine art heirloom actions. So I am just going to walk you through start to finish this edit. So this is straight out of camera. I did do a couple adjustments in Lightroom. I added in some luminance, the orange slider in luminance, and I added in some contrast, lowered my highlights, and then raised my blacks and my shadows. But that is about it. So this is pretty much straight out of camera. So the first thing I need to do, this is a 8x12 drop, and this is either an 8x8 or 8x10, the grass. So I'm just going to hit Command J in case I make some mistakes, and I'm going to grab my clone tool, and I'm just using my bracket keys to make it larger and smaller. I am going to hit here, and I'm just going to clone this over. If it's a smaller area, in some of the other photos, I was able to just use the content aware fill, but I had tried it for this photo and it didn't work. So we're fine. I can just do some cloning over here, and then I'm also, so that it's not such a sharp line here, and I'm going to do some blending as well, but I'm just going to add that up there. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to now grab my mixer brush, and I've got it at 30 and 25, and I'm just going to kind of mix this in together, blend it down. Just to kind of blend this out so it's not like two sharp lines. All right, that's good for now. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my actions, and I am going to go into our WTF Heirloom Collection Fine Art Bases. I use these on 90% plus of my images. It really all depends. My favorite two are Fine Art Base 4 Clean and Warm. So to me, I wanted this to give off like it's evening, and I wanted that super warm feeling. So I am going to go with this Fine Art Base 2 Warm. Base 2 Warm brightens it a little bit more. Base 1 Warm just warms the image up. So I wanted that brightening. Okay, so if I turn that off and on, you can see what that's done. I'm going to click here and open this up. And I'm going to click here with a black brush. And I'm just going to take a little bit of that warmth off of her skin, only because we're going to be adding more in later. Okay. So that's a good start. Now, I always start with that, and then I go from there to subject work. So I love this brightened subject, and sometimes I'm just going to hit play. Sometimes I do it at 10%, sometimes I leave it at 100%. It completely depends on the image. So there will be times where I run this and it's like, whoa, that's bright. But she was really close to the backdrop and far away from the light because I had asked her to walk down like she was walking toward the path, and then I asked her to turn around and snap this picture, so she's right at the drop actually. So the lighting on her was not great. So if I turn this off and on, I'm leaving this at 100%. Like I said, typically I don't do that, but I am for this one because she was quite dark. Another one of my favorite things that I love is the details. So this is something, if you have one of those backdrops that it's dark, but then there's pieces on the backdrop that you want to illuminate, it's perfect to pop those. I also like to use it in place of dodging. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to use this on her dress. So I'm going to grab a white brush and I'm going to put the flow up to 100 and then I'll just adjust the opacity here. And I'm just going to go here. This is all tulle, so it catches natural highlights really well, but I want to accentuate them even more. So I'm just going to fill in here and really pop out and bring more dimension and movement into her dress. And velvet is another one that you can really bring out. So I'm going to also go over the velvet to bring out some of that on her dress as well. Again, I'm just going to use my bracket key to make my soft round brush a little bit smaller. Come through here. And then I'm going to run it on her hairband and really bring out that red on the hairband. So if I turn this off and then on, you can see that it's really done a lot. I'm just going to drop this a tad. And then this dress is stunning, but I really wanted the dress to match the trees. So less of this like turquoise and more green like the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit layer, new adjustment layer, and selective color. So this is actually a cyan, it's not a green. So I am just going to change up the color a little bit. I'm going to add in some more green. And then I'm going to add in some yellow. And then I'm going to add in, darken it up so that it's not like, ooh, bright green. But if I turn that, here it's on and here it's off, you can see I will drop it just a tad to bring in a little bit of that so it's not neon green popping off. But that, again, if I turn that off and on, you can see it's just kind of, it matches more, and I wanted it to be more monochromatic with the back. So I am going to do the same thing, go to selective color, hit OK, and I'm going to work with the trees in the back just a tad. So I'm going to go to yellows. Because there's a lot of yellow in the trees. I'm going to add in some green, some cyan, some blue, and some black. So I am going to click on this and hit Command I, and then I'm just going to paint this on the trees. Okay. So just brightening the trees up, making them a little bit more green. Okay, I'm going to go back to my actions now, and I am going to do the painterly hair action. So this is going to give the hair that really beautiful, silky, soft look. She has, her hair were perfect. Very beautiful hair as is, and skin. I mean, she and her mom both have the most amazing skin. So I'm just going to run this on her hair. And like I said, she already has very silky hair. So if I turn that off and then on, you can see what that does. I am going to drop the opacity just a tad. All right, and then zoom that back out. So that shows you dress, hair. Now, Hazy background blur is one that I also like to use on a lot of my images. And if you're outdoors, it's wonderful. You can really, really blend everything. This was to showcase the backdrop, so I don't want to blur out the entire backdrop, but I do want to create some separation. And like I said, there wasn't a ton of separation between her and the backdrop, so I'm going to use this just to blur the background a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to hit continue. Now, if the masking was poor, you can open this up and you can, on this layer, fix it, but it did a nice job as is, so I'm going to close it back down again, and then I am going to drop that opacity and just blur that a little bit. I am going to add some contrast back in there, but I'll leave it there around 28%. There's other background blurs in here. There's different color toning that you can choose to do, but I'm happy with what I have, so I'm not going to use any of that. One of them that I really love is soft matte, but I didn't want this image to be matte, so I love basic contrast and golden contrast. I also use golden matte quite frequently, but for this one, I am going to use golden contrast. And then I'm going to drop that. And I'm going to open this up and go to the add warmth. And I am going to take some of that warmth. Her face is looking really warm to me, so I'm just going to take some of that, the warmth off of her face, but still adding in some of that beautiful deep contrast. Okay, so we can do dodging and burning now. We have brighten a touch, darken a touch, adding some saturation. We can increase the shadows, decrease the highlights. I am going to try just brightening her. So I'm going to hit brighten a touch, click on here and hit Command I to invert that. And my brush is at 47% right now. I'm just going to paint this on her because I want her to stand out. Okay. And then I'm going to drop that opacity a little bit. I'm going to zoom out. Just turning that off and on to see what that does. Okay, I'm happy with that. This one I used on almost every one of these images. I'm using Vignette Light. And what that does is it's going to put a vignette around it. And this is what kind of gave it that nighttime look, blended the bottom a little bit more with the backdrop. If I turn that off and on, and it just really, really brings a spotlight to my subject. I might just drop it a tad. And then we have size and sharpen for Facebook or Instagram or final sharpen. So those are all things that are included in our Heirloom collection. So now I want to go and work on her eyes, and this is not included in our Heirloom collection. So I'm going to go to, this is included in our eye collection. You can buy it separately, or it's also included in the overall workflow. So I am using Captivating Eyes. It's my favorite of all of our eye actions. I'm going to open that up and zoom in on her. And I use the brighten. I use this one on every subject. It's at about 50% right now. So it's just going to brighten that up. And then the kicker and key lights. Zooming in on her. And I'm just going to dab those. And there's iris, there's brightening the eye white. I like this one, adjust eye color. So I am going to sweep that on here and then add in some blues and greens and drop that to about 20%. We can darken the limbal ring. Her eyes are already really dark, so I'm not going to do that. I am going to do this one though, sharpen. And I'm going to zoom this out. and I can turn that off and on. So it really just pops the eyes. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more because it's easy to overdo the eyes. So I just want to make sure it's not too much. But my my flow was only at 47%. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to zoom back in and I'm going to do layer, new layer. And then I am going to, with a black brush, these are in our eye collection as well, different eyelashes. This is my favorite eyelash to use. It works on almost every subject. Whitney actually made it. It's a copy of my daughter. This is not my daughter, but it's a copy of my daughter's eyelashes. Oh, I'm going to hit Command Z and I'm going to bring this up. Stamp that on there. Use my arrow keys to put this in the right direction. Okay. Just opening her eyes up with some eyelashes. I put eyelashes on almost every one of my subjects that I ever do. Okay. So now that I've done that, I am going to look at her skin. So this is in the WTF skin collection. I am going to do one of my favorite for my daughter because she has very dark circles under her eyes is this under eye correct, but Isley has no dark circles, so we don't need to do that. But the cheeks, lips, and teeth action. So it comes up in a folder and you open it up. I'm going to grab the all over glow and I am going to zoom in on her and I am going to add a little bit of extra glow. And then I'm going to do a little bit of teeth whitening. Not that she needs it, but I can show you. Cute little smile here. And then I am going to just give her a little extra color on her lips. If you don't like this color, there's a couple things you can do. So number one, you can double click and you can choose anywhere you want and change the color of her lips. You can change, it's on soft light, you can change the blending mode. For example, if you wanted something darker, you can put it on multiply. That's an option. And you can also increase and decrease the opacity. So I'm going to put that at about 15. Just added a little bit of extra color. And then what I just showed you there, it's the same thing with the cheeks. You can choose to adjust the opacity. You can double click on this layer mask and choose a different color. You can, sometimes I like to feather it out a little bit. It softens it. Or you can change the blending mode. So just a little bit of color in her. I'm just going to bring this down a little more. Her mom put some blush on her, so she already had some color on her cheeks. Just a little enhancement of the color on her cheeks and her lips. And then I am going to use I got to close this down. Frequency separation action. Now, like I said, her skin is flawless, so there's not a whole lot that I will have to do here. I'm just going to do a little bit of blending over here. But if you have somebody like her hair were perfect, but a lot of times my daughter has wispy flyaways in the, I'm going to add some non-destructive edit layers on here. So I use the texture edit layer to get rid of those little stray hairs. So give me a second while this zooms in. Here, Isley has some of them. So the clone tool is already selected for us. I'm just going to click here with my option key, and you are able to really easily just get rid of those flyaway hairs with frequency separation. So typically if they're on the face anywhere, she had, like I said, her mom had put some like lip gloss on her, so she had a little bit of excess lip gloss. Like over in here, I can kind of work with that, and over here. Okay, but like I said, honestly, her skin is so flawless. So then the other one is the blur in color. So I'm going to go to the mixer brush. And again, you can see my values up here, 30, 25, 25, 25. You do what works for you. This is what I like. And I will smooth this out and try to get this a little bit lighter here, just in the corner. And then I'm just going to smooth this out around here. My daughter gets really red on her chin right here, so this is really great for that. It just kind of smooths out and evens out the redness. Okay, I'm going to zoom this out. Just turning it off and on. Okay. And then I am also going to up the flow to 50% here, and I am going to smooth out her dress. So I'm just going to mix this together. So I personally would not do a 50% flow on the face because it'll look plasticky, but on this, I'm looking for a heavier flow. I want it to look real smooth and painted. So I'm just running it in the natural lines. So in an effort to save time, so that I'm not taking an hour to do this, I'm going to cut it off here. But I could continue to go through and just as I'm doing right now, making these sweeping motions to make her dress look more like it's painted. So if I turn this off and on, you can see what that's doing to the dress, giving it more of like that painted look. Okay, so there's our frequency separation. Now I am going to go to our quick actions, and actually before I will. I'm going to just run a stamp visible layer. Okay, and then I am going to hit Command J, and I am going to go to filter and liquefy. The dress has like a train on the back here, and so it's really sticking out. So I'm just going to put that in a little bit. Kind of poof it out here. Okay. And then I am going to give her a little movement in her hair. And I'm just using the forward warp tool right here. Okay. Now I put a bump in the front. I don't want to do that. Okay, that looks good to me. I'm going to hit OK there. There, taking some of that out. I'm gonna bring this in. Okay, so now I'm going to do layer, new layer. Hit OK. And I am going to grab this. This looks good. And then I am going to change my blending mode to screen and grab a soft round brush. And I am going to just brighten up these lights in the back a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to zoom that out. Oops, I missed one. Turn those off and on. So that's really bright. I'm just going to bring them down a little bit. And then I'm going to layer new adjustment layer in curves. I'm going to grab this center point and bring that up and then hit Command I. I'm going to grab a really big round brush. Put it right over her and just click once. Just to bring a little bit more light to her. And then I'm just going to run this on the areas where the light's hitting. Okay, then I am going to run one of the actions that I run on almost all of my images. It is in our winter collection. And I love this winter wonderland. I also love the cool the highlights where it just adds, but she doesn't look real yellow. But if your subject looks yellow or red, you can cool the highlights, and all of the highlights will have a nice, beautiful, cool hue to them. But I love this holiday pop. So I'm going to run this. And again, I run this on 80% of my images, so not just holiday images. This just happens to be a holiday image. Okay, so if I turn this off and on, you can see it brings some clarity, it brings some brightness. I'm going to just bring that down a tad, and then I'm going to go back to, this is in many of our collections, our Dodge, Burn, and Glow, and I am going to run that and do some dodging and burning. So there's burning of the skin and there's burning global. This is really, really dark. So I am going to put the flow of my brush at like a 2 or a 3. And I'm just going to do some dodging and burning. Do her eyebrows here. Okay, and then I'm going to go to Burn Global, and I'm going to bring this up. And I'm going to go in through some of these darker areas. And add a little bit more depth and dimension. So the reason we have these separate is typically you don't want the skin to be burned as deeply or as dark as other things like clothes, or if there's items that you would like to accentuate. So we have them separate. I'm gonna feather that out just a little bit. And then I'm going to go through. put some in her hair. I'm going to drop the opacity of that a little bit. All right, now I'm going to do, ooh, that's way too much. I got to bring this down again. I'm going to bring it to a 3. And I'm going to do some dodging of her skin. Okay. So I think that this is it. Actually, I'm going to go back to our quick actions. And I'm going to do a stamped visible layer again. This is something that you use so you don't have to flatten. So you can go back and check what you did. And then I'm going to hit Command J and go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. I have it at about 20. Hit OK. I'm going to put a layer mask and hit Command I to invert it and grab a really big brush. And I'm going to put that up to 100%. And I'm going to run that along the sides. Drop that opacity. Just to kind of bring the focus onto her a little bit more, blur the edges. All right, so I'm going to grab a screenshot here and I can show you that here is where the image started and here is where we finished. I can zoom out and show you the beginning and the end. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. I hope that you found a collection that you think would be helpful to you. And again, if you have questions or need anything, please never hesitate to ask, as we are always here to help. Thank you so much.